The jungle was alive. Strange colors glowed on every side, painting the night with green and blue light. The trees rose high, their roots twisting like the arms of giants. The air was heavy and wet. Every breath carried the taste of metal and wild flowers. Hidden creatures called in the distance, their voices sharp and strange, nothing like the birds of earth. Ethan moved carefully, holding his rifle tight. Sweat ran down his face, but he did not stop. He knew something was following them. Behind him, Lyra tried to keep pace. She was not human. Her skin shimmered faintly in the glow of the jungle. Her eyes were large and silver, reflecting every spark of light. She looked proud even in her weakness, but Ethan could hear her uneven breathing. She was tired. They had been running for hours. The mission was already broken. The rest of the squad was gone. Ethan and Lyra were alone now, forced to work together in a world that wanted them dead. A sudden sound cracked through the night. A hiss, long and sharp. Ethan froze. His eyes searched the shadows. Then it came. A serpent leapt from the branches above. Its body was thick and scaled with colors that shifted like oil on water. Its fangs glowed with venom. Before Ethan could fire, the serpent struck. Its fangs sank deep into Lyra's thigh. She cried out and fell to the ground. The creature twisted, ready for another strike, but Ethan shot it through the head. The blast echoed. The serpent fell lifeless, but the damage was done. Ethan dropped to his knees beside her. "Stay with me," he said, his voice tight with fear. Lyra's skin was pale, her breath short. Dark veins spread from the wound, racing up her leg. The poison was fast. She gripped his arm with surprising strength. Her voice was weak yet urgent. "There is only one way," she whispered. "The venom must be pulled out. If it stays, I die." Ethan's heart pounded. He knew what she meant. His eyes went to the wound. Her thigh was swelling, turning dark. He froze, caught between shame and desperation. Her silver eyes locked on his. "Do it! Please!" For a moment, time stood still. The jungle seemed to hold its breath. Ethan's throat was dry. He had fought in battles, seen death many times, but nothing had prepared him for this. His mind screamed against it. Yet he saw her pain, saw the poison spreading faster. He could not let her die. His hands shook as he set the rifle aside. He leaned closer, his lips trembling as he pressed them against the wound. The taste of blood and venom filled his mouth. It was bitter and sharp, burning his tongue. He spat it out, then went again, drawing the poison with all his strength. Lyra's hand clutched his shoulder. Her body trembled with pain. She closed her eyes, forcing herself to stay awake. Ethan worked without pause, sucking, spitting, gasping for breath, and returning to the wound. Each time he thought he could not continue, he saw the dark lines spreading further. Each time he fought his own disgust, he forced himself to go on. The jungle around them seemed to grow darker. Strange eyes gleamed in the distance, watching. Yet Ethan's focus was only on her. Every drop of venom he pulled felt like a battle. His heart pounded with fear, with shame, with determination. Finally, the swelling slowed. The black veins stopped climbing higher. Lyra's breathing steadied. She opened her eyes, weak but alive. Her gaze lingered on him, full of something more than gratitude. "You saved me," she whispered. Ethan sat back, spitting one last time into the dirt. His chest rose and fell like he had run for miles. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, his eyes fixed on hers. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then a sound cut through the silence. A deep, heavy rustle from the trees above. More serpents were coming. Their hunt was not over. Ethan grabbed his rifle again, pulling Lyra to her feet. She was weak, leaning on him, but alive. The venom was no longer winning. He tightened his grip on her arm and looked into the darkness where the sound grew louder. The night had not ended. Their fight had only begun. The jungle did not wait for them to recover. The sound of serpents sliding through the trees grew louder. Branches cracked. Leaves shook. The night air seemed alive with hunters. Ethan tightened his grip on Lyra's arm. She was weak, but her eyes were open. She tried to stand on her own, but her injured leg trembled. He pulled her close and whispered, "Lean on me. We have to move." She wanted to argue. Pride burned in her gaze, but her body betrayed her. At last, she nodded. He lifted her arm across his shoulders and helped her walk. Every step was slow, but they could not stop. The jungle floor was soft with moss and roots. Strange plants brushed against their legs. Some glowed like lanterns, others moved as if alive. Ethan's heart raced with every sound. He kept his rifle ready, but he knew if more serpents struck, they would not survive. Behind them, a hiss echoed, low and sharp. Lyra flinched. Her hand squeezed his arm. "They do not give up," she whispered. "Once they mark prey, they chase until blood is spilled." Ethan clenched his jaw. He had fought armies before, but this was different. This was a world that wanted to consume them whole. He looked at her pale face, the sweat on her skin, and knew she would not last long. They pushed forward until the trees thinned. A small stream cut through the jungle, its water glowing faintly with strange minerals. Ethan lowered her onto a rock. She gasped as she sat, her injured leg shaking. He knelt beside her, checking the wound. The swelling had slowed, but her skin was hot. The venom was not fully gone. He cursed under his breath. Lyra touched his hand. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. "You saved me. No one of your kind would have done it. Not for me." Ethan met her gaze. Her silver eyes reflected the glowing stream, bright and endless. He shook his head. "I could not let you die. Human or not, you're alive. That's what matters." For a moment, silence stretched between them. The sounds of the jungle faded. Only the stream's gentle trickle filled the air. Lyra's hand lingered on his, her touch light yet steady. Something unspoken passed between them. But the silence broke. A sudden splash echoed downstream. Ethan's eyes snapped to the water. In the glowing surface, long shapes twisted. Serpents. More than one. They slid across the stream with ease, their bodies shimmering like blades. Ethan's pulse quickened. He pulled Lyra to her feet again. "We move. Now." She winced but forced herself to stand. Together they stumbled forward along the stream, searching for cover. The serpents followed, their hiss rising in hunger. The jungle seemed to close in on them. The path grew narrow, roots like claws beneath their boots. Ethan's breath came hard. He glanced at Lyra, seeing her fight to keep pace. She was stronger than he had thought, refusing to surrender even with poison in her veins. Then, ahead, he saw it. A hollow tree, massive and ancient, its trunk split open like a doorway. He pulled her toward it. They slipped inside, crouching low in the dark. The serpents arrived moments later. Their glowing bodies slithered past the opening. Ethan held his breath, his arm around Lyra to keep her still. He could feel the rapid beat of her heart against his chest. The serpents lingered, sniffing the air, their tongues flicking in and out. One turned its head toward the hollow. Its eyes gleamed with cruel light. Ethan's finger tightened on his rifle, but he knew firing would bring them all down. Lyra whispered against his ear, her breath trembling. "Do not move. They cannot see well in the dark. Only smell." They stayed frozen. Seconds stretched into minutes. Ethan's muscles ached, but he dared not shift. The serpent's head pushed closer, its tongue tasting the air near the hollow. Ethan thought his heart would burst. He looked at Lyra. She was calm, her gaze fixed, her will unshaken. He drew strength from her. At last, the serpent slid away, vanishing into the jungle. The hissing grew faint, swallowed by the night. Ethan let out a breath he had held too long. He leaned back against the wood, closing his eyes for a moment. Lyra rested against him, her body heavy with exhaustion. "We cannot keep running," she said softly. "Not like this. They will find us again." Ethan nodded. He looked into the shadows beyond the hollow, his jaw set. "Then we stop running." We find a way to fight. Her eyes widened slightly. Fight? Against them? He met her gaze. I have fought worse odds. I will not let them take you. For a long moment she searched his face. Then a small, faint smile touched her lips. You are strange, human. Strange, but brave. The jungle outside stirred again, whispers in the trees. The hunt was far from over. But inside the hollow, something new had taken root. Not just survival. Not just fear. A bond. A promise that would not break. The jungle never slept. Every shadow held movement. Every breath carried danger. Ethan and Lyra stepped out of the hollow tree at dawn, but the world around them felt no safer. The sky above glowed faintly with two suns rising side by side. Their light poured through the jungle, painting the leaves in fire and gold. Yet even in daylight, the forest remained a place of fear. Ethan held his rifle across his chest as he walked, guiding Lyra with one arm. She limped beside him, her face pale, her thigh still weak from the venom. She said nothing, but he could feel the weight of her effort in every step. They had one goal: reach the human outpost across the valley. If they could get there, they might live. But the serpents were not gone. Ethan could hear them. Sometimes it was a hiss in the branches. Sometimes the faint scrape of scales on bark. Always near. Always watching. Lyra broke the silence first. They hunt as a pack. If one marks us, the others follow. They will not stop. Ethan glanced at her. Sweat ran down her temple, yet her silver eyes were steady. Then we keep moving. If they want a chase, we'll give them one. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. You are reckless. But brave. They pressed forward. The jungle floor dipped into a marsh. Strange plants rose from the water, their stalks tall as men, their flowers opening like mouths. The air smelled sour. Ethan helped Lyra through, lifting her when the water grew deep. She clung to his shoulders, her breath close against his neck. From behind, a sharp hiss split the silence. The serpents had found them again. Ethan's pulse quickened. He waded faster, dragging Lyra forward. Suddenly, one serpent burst from the water ahead. Its body coiled high, eyes burning like twin embers. It struck, jaws wide. Ethan fired. The shot cracked through the air, blasting its head apart. The body thrashed, shaking the water, then fell still. But more came. Their bodies cut through the marsh, scales glinting under the suns. Lyra gasped, her grip tightening on him. There are too many. Ethan's eyes scanned the marsh. He spotted a narrow ridge of land ahead, rising from the swamp like a path. There. Hold on. He carried her, splashing through the water as serpents closed from both sides. Their bodies whipped and struck, missing by inches. He fired again, the recoil shaking his arms, but he kept running. They reached the ridge and climbed onto dry ground. Ethan set her down carefully, his chest heaving. The serpents gathered at the edge of the swamp, their heads weaving in the air, tongues flicking. For a moment they did not follow. Lyra's voice trembled, though not from fear alone. They are waiting. They are clever. Ethan frowned, his rifle still raised. Then we move before they decide to strike. The ridge led them higher, through thick vines and tangled roots. The jungle closed around them, branches blocking the suns. The world turned dark again. Every step was a struggle. Lyra leaned heavily on him, yet she never asked to stop. Her spirit burned through her weakness. Ethan could not help but admire it. She was unlike anyone he had known, human or not. Hours passed. Their breaths grew ragged. The serpents followed, always just out of sight. Their hisses echoed like whispers in the dark. At last they reached a cliffside. The valley stretched below, wide and endless. In the distance, faint smoke curled into the sky. The human outpost. Salvation? Lyra's eyes lit with hope. We are close. But the serpents struck before relief could take root. From the branches above, 3 of them dropped, their bodies coiling across the path. Ethan pushed Lyra behind him, rifle raised. The serpents circled, their scales shimmering, their hisses sharp with hunger. Ethan fired once, striking one in the chest. It screamed and fell, but the others lunged. He swung the rifle like a club, smashing one aside. The other struck at Lyra. She raised her hand, silver light flashing from her palm. Energy burst out, slamming the serpent back against the rocks. Ethan blinked in shock, but there was no time for questions. He fired again, finishing the last serpent. The air filled with silence, broken only by their gasps. Lyra leaned against the cliff wall, her strength fading. Ethan stood beside her, scanning the trees. More would come. He knew it. She looked at him, her silver eyes glowing faintly. You fight like no other human I have seen. He met her gaze, his voice steady. And you are stronger than you think. Their eyes held for a moment, the chaos around them forgotten. Then another hiss rose from the jungle. Louder this time. Many voices. The chase was not over. It had only grown more dangerous. Ethan pulled her close, his jaw tight. We run again. Together. She nodded, her lips trembling with a faint smile. Together. And with that they pressed forward, into a valley where hope and death waited side by side. The suns dipped low, fading behind the trees. The jungle grew darker once more. Long shadows stretched across the valley, and the sound of hissing carried through the air. Ethan knew they could not keep running. Lyra's body trembled with every step. Her strength was nearly gone. At last they found it. A cave hidden in the side of the cliff, its mouth wide and dark like the opening of another world. Ethan guided her inside, helping her down onto a flat stone. The air within was cool and dry, the walls marked by strange crystals that glowed faintly. For the first time since the attack, there was shelter. Ethan lit a small fire from dry branches he had gathered. The flames flickered, chasing shadows across the stone walls. Lyra sat close, her face pale but her silver eyes glowing in the firelight. She held her injured leg with both hands, her breath uneven. You should rest, Ethan said quietly. We will move again at dawn. Lyra shook her head. They will not stop at dawn. The serpents will wait for us. They will circle this cave until hunger drives them mad. Then they will come. Her words carried no fear, only certainty. Ethan's jaw tightened. He set another branch on the fire. Then we fight when they come. She looked at him for a long moment. You are not like the others. He turned his head. What do you mean? Her gaze lowered to the flames. My people have told stories of humans. They said you are selfish, greedy, driven by hunger for war and conquest. But you risked your life for me. You faced shame. You put your mouth to my wound, something no one of my kind would ever forgive, and you did not hesitate. Ethan's throat tightened. I hesitated. Her eyes lifted to his. But you still did it. The cave fell silent. The fire cracked softly. Outside, the faint hiss of serpents drifted on the wind. But in that moment, it was only the two of them. Ethan met her silver gaze and felt the weight of her words. He had never thought of himself as anything more than a soldier, someone who fought because orders demanded it. Yet here, in this cave, with her eyes on him, he felt something different. Something he had no name for. Lyra reached out slowly. Her hand touched his, light as falling ash. You saved me, Ethan. Not just my body, but my heart. Do you understand what that means? His breath caught. He wanted to answer, but words failed. She leaned closer, her voice low. In my world, when one life is tied to another, it changes everything. My people would see this as a bond. They would call me ruined for allowing you to touch me. Yet here I feel no ruin. I feel alive. Ethan's chest tightened. He looked at her hand resting on his. Warm, fragile, yet strong. He whispered, I didn't save you because of duty. I saved you because I couldn't stand to lose you. Her lips parted slightly. For a heartbeat, there was no jungle, no serpents, no fire. Only the space between them. But the world did not stay silent. A sudden tremor shook the cave. Rocks tumbled from above. The hissing grew louder, echoing at the entrance. The serpents had found them. Ethan pulled his hand free and grabbed his rifle. "Stay behind me." Lyra's eyes burned bright, her earlier softness hardening into fire. "No. We fight together." The shadows at the cave mouth writhed. Dozens of glowing eyes filled the dark. The serpents slid inside, their bodies scraping the stone, their hisses sharp with hunger. Ethan stood firm, rifle raised. His heart raced, but fear no longer held him. He was ready. And beside him, Lyra stood tall, her hand glowing with silver light. Her wounds still bled, yet her spirit burned brighter than the fire. They shared one look, one silent promise. If they died here, they would not die alone. The serpents lunged. The cave exploded with sound. Gunfire. Light. Screams of beasts and the fierce cry of survival. The cave shook as the serpents poured in. Their bodies scraped along the stone, scales glinting in the firelight. Their glowing eyes filled the dark, their hissing like a storm of blades. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. He gripped his rifle tight and fired. The shot cracked loud, echoing off the walls. One serpent's head burst, its body thrashing before falling limp. But more came, their jaws snapping, their bodies coiling closer. "Stay back!" he shouted, moving to shield Lyra. But Lyra stepped forward, her hand raised. Silver light burst from her palm, striking the nearest serpent. The creature screamed, slammed against the wall, and fell smoking to the ground. Her power lit the cave bright as lightning. Ethan glanced at her in shock, but she did not falter. Her silver eyes glowed, fierce and wild. "I told you," she said, her voice strong despite her wounds. "We fight together." The serpents lunged again. Ethan swung his rifle, smashing one across the jaw, then fired at another. Lyra sent another wave of light, blasting two creatures backward. The air filled with roars, fire, and the crack of stone. But there were too many. For every serpent that fell, two more pushed forward. Their bodies wrapped around rocks, their jaws dripping venom. One struck at Ethan, teeth scraping his shoulder armor. He grunted and shoved it back with the butt of his rifle. Another serpent coiled around his leg, dragging him toward its fangs. Pain shot through him as the grip tightened. Before it could strike, Lyra's light flashed again. The serpent shrieked and let go, smoke rising from its scales. Ethan scrambled to his feet, gasping. Their eyes met for only a second, but it was enough. She was fighting for him, just as he fought for her. The battle raged on. Firelight flickered wildly as serpents knocked over the burning branches. Smoke filled the cave, making it hard to breathe. The ground was slick with blood and ash. Ethan's muscles screamed with exhaustion, but he refused to stop. He fired until his rifle clicked empty. Then he drew his knife, slashing at the creatures that closed in. One serpent lunged for his throat. He caught it with both hands, forcing the jaws open as venom dripped inches from his face. With a roar, he plunged the knife into its head. Beside him, Lyra collapsed to one knee, her glow flickering. She was drained. Yet even in weakness, she lifted her hand again, unleashing one last surge of power. The silver light blasted outward, filling the cave. The serpents screamed as the wave burned through their ranks. When the light faded, silence fell. The cave floor was littered with bodies, the air thick with smoke and the stench of burned flesh. The survivors hissed in fear, retreating back into the darkness of the jungle. Ethan staggered, his chest heaving. His arms shook, his knife slick with blood. He turned to Lyra. She was slumped against the wall, her skin pale, her breath shallow. He dropped beside her, pulling her into his arms. "Stay with me. Don't you dare leave me now." Her lips moved faintly. "You fought like fire. Like no human I have ever seen." He shook his head, his voice raw. "And you fought like a star. You saved us both." Her hand lifted weakly, resting on his chest. Her silver eyes softened. Together. The fire burned low, casting a faint glow over the wreckage. Ethan held her close, his heart pounding with fear, with relief, with something deeper he could not name. They had survived the night. Barely. But he knew this was not the end. Outside, in the jungle, more serpents waited. More dangers prowled. Yet in this cave, something had changed. No longer strangers, no longer enemies, Ethan and Lyra had forged something stronger than fear. A bond made in blood and fire. And that bond would carry them through whatever came next. The suns had climbed high by the time Ethan and Lyra reached the outpost. Smoke rose from the chimneys, walls of steel and stone standing strong against the jungle. Soldiers in armor watched from the towers, rifles ready. To Ethan, it was a site of safety. To Lyra, it was a place of judgment. As they approached the gates, the guards shouted and lowered their weapons. "Identify yourself!" Ethan raised his arm, his voice loud but strained. "Sergeant Ethan Cross. Survivors inbound. Open the gate." The gates groaned as they swung wide. Soldiers rushed forward, some helping Ethan carry Lyra inside. She was pale, her leg wrapped in rough bandages, but her silver eyes stayed sharp. The humans brought them into the courtyard, where commanders waited. The commander, a tall man with cold eyes, looked Ethan over. "You were marked lost. The squad was declared gone." His gaze moved to Lyra. "And what is this?" Ethan straightened. "She is an ally. She saved my life. And I saved hers." Murmurs rippled through the gathered soldiers. Some stared at Lyra with open hatred. Others whispered about what they saw, the wound, the closeness, the way Ethan held her arm. Lyra sensed it. Her back stiffened, pride shining even through exhaustion. "I am not your enemy," she said. "Without him, I would already be dead. Without me, he would not stand here." But the commander's face hardened. "Humans and her kind are not allies. Their blood has never mixed with ours. Their laws forbid contact. And yet," his voice dropped low, "I see what you have done." The words cut through the air like a blade. Ethan's fists clenched. He stepped forward, his voice sharp. "She was dying. Poison in her veins. There was one way to save her, and I did it. No soldier would let a comrade die if he had the chance to save them." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Comrade? She is not human. She is nothing but a danger." The crowd stirred, voices rising. Some shouted for her removal. Others argued she had helped in the battle. The outpost split before Ethan's eyes. Lyra's voice rang out clear, silencing them all. "You call me danger, yet I bleed because I stood beside him. Your world and mine have been torn by hate for years. But in the jungle, none of that mattered. He chose to save me. And I chose to fight for him." Her words struck deep. Soldiers fell quiet, watching the alien woman who spoke with such strength. The commander shook his head. "Your bond is forbidden. If you stay, there will be punishment." Ethan's voice thundered through the courtyard. "Then punish me. I will not deny what I did. I will not let her stand alone." Gasps rippled through the soldiers. Ethan's choice was clear, and no fear of rank or rule could silence him. For a long moment, the commander said nothing. His eyes flicked between Ethan and Lyra, seeing the truth neither could hide. The silence stretched heavy over the outpost. At last the commander spoke. "You have broken law. But you have also shown strength. This bond is not ours to judge tonight. Go. Rest. The council will decide." He turned sharply and walked away. The crowd slowly dispersed, some with anger, others with quiet thought. Ethan guided Lyra to a corner of the outpost, where the noise faded. She sank onto a bench, her body trembling from weakness, but her eyes fixed on him. "You risked everything," she whispered. "Your place, your honor, your people." Ethan knelt before her, his voice steady. "I would risk more. I could not stand there and let them take you." For the first time, Lyra's silver eyes softened with tears. She reached out, her hand brushing his cheek. "You are bound to me now. More than you know." He covered her hand with his heart pounding. Then let it be. Whatever it means, I accept it. Outside, the jungle roared with the sound of distant serpents. Inside the outpost, the weight of choice hung heavy in the air. Ethan and Lyra had crossed a line that could not be undone. And both knew the future would never be the same. Night settled over the outpost. The fires burned low, casting faint light on the steel walls. Soldiers kept watch at the towers, but their eyes often turned toward the corner where Ethan and Lyra rested. Whispers followed them, sharp with judgment, heavy with curiosity. Inside the barracks, Ethan sat beside her bed. Lyra's skin was pale, her silver eyes dim with exhaustion. Yet her hand still held his, refusing to let go. You should rest, Ethan said softly. Lyra smiled faintly. I am resting. Here with you. He brushed a strand of her hair away from her face. His chest tightened as he looked at her. She was alien, yet in that moment she was more familiar than anyone he had ever known. The silence between them grew heavy. Then Lyra spoke, her voice low. Ethan, do you know what you have done? He frowned. I saved your life. That's all. Her eyes deepened, glowing faintly in the dim light. No. It was more. When you pulled the venom from my body, you did not only take poison. You took a bond into yourself. My people call it soul binding. It happens when one draws life from another. It ties us together, forever. Ethan's breath caught. Forever? She nodded slowly. Yes. Your life now echoes with mine. If I live, you live. If I die, you will feel it. We are no longer two, Ethan. We are one. The words struck him harder than any battle. He stared at her, struggling to understand. And you knew this? Tears shimmered in her eyes. I knew, but I did not tell you. I feared what it would mean. For you. For me. For both our people. Ethan's heart pounded. For a moment he felt the weight of everything pressing down, laws broken, enemies gathering, a future uncertain. Yet when he looked into her eyes, all he saw was truth. A bond forged in blood, fire, and choice. He squeezed her hand tighter. Then I accept it. Whatever comes, I am with you. Her lips trembled, then curved into a fragile smile. She leaned closer, her forehead touching his. You are more than human, Ethan. You are my anchor. My fire. Their closeness burned like a quiet flame. No words could capture the depth of the moment. It was not just survival anymore. It was love, raw and undeniable. But outside, the world shifted. Alarms rang across the outpost. Soldiers shouted. Ethan rose quickly, grabbing his rifle. A guard burst in. The serpents are coming! Dozens of them. Bigger than before. Ethan's jaw tightened. He turned to Lyra, his voice firm. Stay here. I'll fight. But Lyra shook her head, her silver eyes burning with resolve. No. We fight together. That is the bond. She rose slowly, her body still weak, but her spirit blazing. Ethan knew there was no stopping her. He stood beside her, ready. The gates of the outpost shook as the serpents struck. Their roars filled the night. Soldiers lined the walls, weapons ready, fear in their eyes. Then they saw Ethan and Lyra step forward. Human and alien, side by side. One carrying steel and fire. The other glowing with silver light. The serpents crashed against the walls, breaking through. The battle roared to life. Ethan fired with relentless force, cutting down the first wave. Lyra's light burst out, striking the beasts with burning energy. Together they fought like storm and star, unbreakable, unstoppable. The soldiers who once whispered now stood in awe. Their fear turned to courage as they joined the fight. The outpost thundered with human strength and alien power, united in one purpose: survival. By dawn, the ground outside was littered with serpent corpses. Smoke and blood hung in the air. The survivors stood in silence, staring at the pair who had led them. Ethan lowered his rifle, his body trembling with exhaustion. Lyra stood beside him, her hand in his, her glow dim but steady. The commander approached, his eyes hard, yet uncertain. He looked at them both, then at the soldiers who had witnessed the battle. Finally, his voice rang out. Maybe the laws are wrong. Maybe strength is not in division, but in bond. The words echoed across the outpost. The soldiers nodded. For the first time, human and alien stood together, not in hatred, but in respect. Ethan turned to Lyra. Her silver eyes met his, soft with love, fierce with promise. They had started as enemies. They had become survivors. Now they were bound, not only by Venom, but by choice, by fire, by something greater than either world could deny. And as the suns rose over the valley, Ethan knew one truth. This was not the end of their story. It was only the beginning.